Thank you. Oh, hello. Hello. Thank you so much for that warm applause. Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's play briefing. This is play number 3 in our 2025 season. Before we begin tonight, I'd like to honour the traditional owners of the land on which we gather, the Turrbal and Yagara people. On behalf of all the creatives who will be on this stage, this evening we acknowledge on this, our National Sorry Day, that this space, this place, has always been a site of storytelling, and we are privileged to add another story to these lands. And what a story that is. My name is Daniel Evans. I am the Artistic Director of Queensland Theatre, and stop. Keep going. It's my pleasure to welcome you all here tonight. I've got a question here that says, how are you all doing? Great. Let's try it one more time. How's everyone doing? That's the right response. So far this year, if you've been with us as a subscriber, we've been on a bonnet-clad romp through Regency, England. We've saddled up and ridden into the sunset with Calamity Jane and her ragtag crew of musical misfits. And for now, we're going to stay on a loosish theme. Love and music have always been soulmates. Together they have summoned symphonies, they have inspired poetry, struck emotional chords, and more often than not, hit their fair share of bung notes. And this dissonance is the premise for our next play, David Williamson's Rhinestone, Rex and Miss Monica. Would you please welcome to the stage the cast and crew of Rhinestone, Rex and Miss Monica, director Mark Kilmurray, Georgie Parker, Glenn Hazeldine, designer Veronica Bennett, composer and sound designer Daryl Wallace, and lighting designer Ben Hughes. Now, for those of you who haven't been with us at a subscriber briefing, this is your chance to ask any question you might have about the play, the process that these guys have been using to get that play on, any aspect of the design, any secret, admission you want about David Williamson. This is your all-access pass. And I'm going to kick us off with a big welcome to Queensland and a big welcome back to not only our fab stage manager, Grant, there in the wings. Hello, Grant. And our assistant stage manager, T. But Ben, our lighting designer, was last seen with us on Round the Twist, the musical. But winning the award for the longest sabbatical ever is Georgie Parker, who was last with us in the Threepenny Opera and is back in 2025 in this play. Welcome back, Georgie.
Thank you very much.
I'm not going to start with the play just yet. I'm going to take a different route here. And Georgie, we know you. I mean, I feel like I know you very intimately. And I feel like we all know Georgie because she's had such an illustrious career on the screen. But I kind of want to start with theatre tonight. And I want to know, where does theatre occupy your artistic heart? What keeps you coming back to this space to play?
Well, I started off as a dancer when I was 4, and the stage was really the only thing I knew. And then I started doing plays at school when I was 8. And so this environment has always made the most sense to me as far as storytelling and sharing it with an audience, because this is the most natural medium, I think, for an actor. Having said that, I've been very fortunate to have a lot of exposure to an audience through TV, which is a very different experience. But I think once you've done theatre, the adrenaline and the challenge of the story and keeping it fresh and keeping it alive for the audience is a never-ending challenge. But it's a real privilege to be able to do it. Yeah.
That's a beautiful answer.
Thank you so much.
Oh, no worries. Glenn, hello.
Hello.
You're making your debut with us.
Yeah, apparently, yes.
Fabulous.
How
great.
That's
We
very
love
exciting.
that. You are known, you might not know this, but Glenn is actually known as one of the most kindest and generous people in the Australian theatre industry.
He is.
He does incredible work in advocacy. which you might talk more about in a moment. But first of all, we're going to talk about where this production has come from, but I'm interested to know, Glenn, in your words, maybe Georgie might want to chip in, but what is the story of Rhinestone, Rex and Miss Monica? What is the 2 hours traffic of our stage in this production? What actually happens?
Well, I'll answer it this way. Georgie and I were privileged enough to have... This is the third time Georgie and I have been together to present this production. We did it twice in Sydney in 2 different productions, 14 years apart. So coming back to it, I'm 54 this year in a couple of months. And so coming back to it for this production with Mark has been kind of revelatory in a way, because what we presented as a classic Williamson comedy, it's not one of the political, jousting plays. It's about 2 people who are single and lonely, but they are completely opposite to one another. And the premise of the piece is, is it possible that 2 people with very little in common, can they find some ground in which they might forge a future together? And that's the big debate of the play. And coming back to it, all these years later, as a 53-year-old, I think it just brings so much more richness to the characterisation of that story than when we did it originally in 1874.
Because I was 45 and now I'm 60. God. Doing it as a 45-year-old,
it's different though, isn't it?
It's a completely different experience, and the stakes are different, and there's more to lose if they don't, take this jump together. But it's just funnier because as we get older, I suppose there's more relationship stuff's happened, and there's just more to draw on. And also, you understand the piece. You can't. There's always stuff to figure out with David Williamson. There's always these little corners where it's like, oh my God, we could do that. So we're still finding things out now when we're doing it now.
So even though we have done it together, this play together before, the great privilege of working with Mark on this one,
Absolutely.
this version it's completely fresh once again.
Yeah.
And like Georgie says, we keep finding things. We've been rehearsing for the last 2 weeks, and we've been in here today teching, and we're still finding little moments to bring out a kind of a deeper resonance. The comedy with Williamson always takes care of itself. That's your job. I think as an audiences know Williamson so well that they come in ready to find the humour. For us, it's the job is to mine the humanity, and that's what we've been doing with Mark over the last couple of weeks. And I'm really looking forward. I've never been in this room before, and I'm so excited to be
we
playing
both
the Billy Brown.
worked with Billy Brown, so that's the most beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Mark, I'm coming to you now. Mark is the artistic director of the Ensemble Theatre in Sydney. Has anyone been to the Ensemble in the room? Anyone? Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Now, it is the most idyllic... the location of that theatre is like being at a resort, because it's in the most beautiful little cove in Kirribilli, and it's so stunning, and I don't know how anyone gets any work done in that theatre, because it's got the most beautiful water views. Mark, you're no stranger to...
You have water views here, though, don't you?
We do.
When it floods.
Yes. More than we'd like to mention. Sore point. But we're here, we made it. Mark, you're no stranger to Williamson. I guess what I'm wondering, and Georgie and Glenn have kind of alluded to it, but this isn't what you might expect from your usual David Williamson fare. Do you want to talk a bit about how this one carves its way apart? Or perhaps, I don't know, where it sits in the Williamson canon, maybe?
Yeah, it is very different. It's a romantic comedy, and it's, as Glenn and Georgie were saying, it's 2 opposites. So it is different in that way that David Williamson doesn't. It's usually he has a more of a political intent, or it's more about a wider family or current issues. He's very good at lifting the lid on whatever's going on at this time in the world, and that's what he does so well. From Don's Party to The Great Divide to Aria last year, we did it. He's very good at that, family values. I know it was here. He's great at that juggle. But for this play, Georgie and Glenn did this play in 1873, and I saw it, and then I saw it again. We had a Williamson evening, so it's a celebration of David Williamson's 50th year writing plays, which I felt like we had to celebrate. So we did lots of extracts from all his work, from the very first play that he did, right up to date, and it went down really well. And Georgie and Glenn did an extract from Rhinestone Rex, and I thought, this is a really interesting play because, as you say, and it's so different from David Williamson, and it was funny, and it stood the test of time. So I thought, well, let's do it again, but. The reason to do it again is because, of course, David's very clever at creating these wonderful characters, but we also wanted to perhaps give the female character more agency because when it was done originally, she was the butt of lots of the jokes. So we wanted to address that balance. Plus, also, it's about radio host, and we wanted to make it the host more on the radio rather than live, and so there were certain things that we did to change it. And David's very good at. I don't send him every change every day because that would get crazy. But after a couple of weeks, I say, by the way, what about this? How about this? We've done this and we've changed this, and he's very good at. If he thinks that's a good idea, great, go for it. Sometimes he's insistent on something. I say, no, I like that joke. Put that one back in. You're okay, all right, fair enough. But it was a great. So what was really good for me, as coming in as a director from a production that had been there before, was seeing the blueprint of how well it worked. But then we had the luxury, the three of us, of adding to it and bringing it alive again for today when we did it a few years ago, and we're still updating even now in this last couple of weeks rehearsal with David's blessing. So that's always a good thing that he's gone, yep, great, and he's very happy that we're doing that. So in terms of it being different, I think it's the romantic comedy bit that is the big difference, and the fact that it's an ongoing. I mean, in 10 years' time, they could both still do this play. I mean, you really could.
I'll be 70.
I'll be retired and living somewhere. But it would be. But you could keep reinventing it, which is the beauty of the work, I think.
Yeah, we actually could.
I'm just wondering, Georgie and Glenn, let's dig a bit further into Monica and Gary, the characters that you play, and then I promise I'll come to the design. But can we dig into Monica and Gary? Who are these people? I mean, two-phase question. Who are they? And perhaps what brings them together? Why do you think it is that they click in the play? What's their relationship?
Well, Monica is a very complex woman who was a child, not a prodigy, but she was a very gifted musician as a child. And when you're a gifted child, it sets you on a path, and it's you're sort of greenhoused in this classical world, and that's really all you know. And it's like any sporting people, or you that's what you're good at, and that's your world. And then she gets an injury that she can't recover from, and she's just on the cusp of becoming a first violinist, and she's never known any other life, so she doesn't know how to be in the world. And so she's injured, she can't play anymore, she is a complex woman, she has a very high standard for herself, she's very intelligent, but she has nowhere to put it, she has no vibrant relationships, and she drinks. So she's, and to keep people at bay, she's arrogant, and she's critical, and does this imperial thing where she knows more than other people. But that's just a defence mechanism, and I won't speak for Gary's, for Glenn's character Gary, but he has a way of just seeping through, which is disarming and irritating. But this delightful mix, which is the comedy thing, right? It's like she likes him and she hates that she likes him. And how do I not like him? Well, I'll embarrass him or I'll make him look like a fool, but then he kind of turns it around and it's like, that's even more annoying, but I like him. So it's that beautiful dance between all those things. And then the second act, they're showing their underbellies a lot more. But they're two imperfect people who come together and they sort of become perfect together in a way. I don't want to give away the ending.
And Gary's a guy, I think he's kind of on the run from his past. He made a choice when he was a young father that he now has to live with. And he pretends to be somebody that he's not. And it's Monica, that kind of lacerating tongue that strips away his pretenses and brings him back to the kind of guy that he should just be comfortable being. And he's lonely, He's he falls for the spunkiness of this woman immediately. How could you resist? But I don't know, he takes up more space than he should. He comes into this house to renovate her kitchen, like she contracts him to renovate the kitchen, and he takes up so much space in her house that it drives her nuts. And then, it's set over a couple of months, the play, and you just watch this relationship disintegrate, perhaps.
And then build. It's so weird. It's like stripped away, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute.
But it's quite beautiful. It's a lovely romantic comedy, but there's a beauty in it that the more we do it, the more I appreciate it.
We found the process of rehearsing it and exploring it with Mark really stimulating and incredibly, I think it's the best, version of the show, definitely that it can be at this time. I feel like we're presenting the best version of the show, which is...
well, that's good.
Thank you. Yes,
Because
I think so.
We
Thank
want the
God
best
for
version.
that.
Selfishly. Mark, I'm wondering... this could be a big ask, but maybe it's too personal. Mark...
How have you noticed Georgie and Glenn's performance has changed? Have you noticed anything discernible changes over in this re-rehearsal?
Well, it was great coming back to it because we knew we were coming here. It was wonderful. When we did it last time, we felt like we got it to a really lovely place from the very first version, and both Georgie and Glenn were saying they felt this deeper love for their characters, and again, coming in again, we had a couple of weeks rehearsal to readdress it, and again it became very natural to you both. Again, I thought that you suddenly knew them really well, and it feels like for the three of us, it's a lovely added on season to complete the journey that we've all been on. It's been really nice following Glenn and Georgie as actors, but also as characters that we can keep revisiting them, and they're both wonderful. And the thing with David Williamson's work is that it's not actually naturalism. There's a rhythm to it, and there's we're talking about the other day. There's a very strong subtext that needs to be underneath. So you need really, and I'm not just saying this because I hear you need really, really good actors to pull that off. And thank goodness I have them, because it makes my job so much easier.
It's a really interesting piece. It kind of feels like. To me, it's got streaks of like a kind of Nora Ephron film, but you can kind of feel like a Beatrice and Benedict kind of like relationship between the two. And I have to say, my favourite scene, I'm not going to give too much away, but I love the top of Act 2. I think the monologue at the top of Act 2, she feels like a Chekhovian character to me in that monologue.
She's tragic.
It's tragic.
It's a real.
It's real.
I mean, it's funny, but
Funny as well.
It's real funny. You'll laugh, but. You'll cry. V, I'm going to come to you, our designer of this space that we're so lucky to be seeing it's a complete version of this set. We're not really used to that. Usually we come in and it's half complete under construction. I'm wondering, you first designed this for the ensemble.
Yep.
A very different space. A bit smaller, a thrust, so it kind of the ensemble, if you haven't been, it thrusts into the audience, and the audience are quite close, but it's you're very much on top of the action in the ensemble. What were some of the considerations you went through to maybe, I don't know, is it like breathe out the design, or what did you kind of do when this slid across your desk? You went, I remember this one.
Well, it's like you say, it's a completely different configuration, similar but different to a space that I've worked in Sydney before, and I'd never, last Monday was the first time I'd actually set foot in the theatre, so it was about thinking about how to engage you, the audience, with this set and the characters, as well as it sits in ensemble. So the joy of this version, and one of the biggest differences, because there are two big differences now, is that we've got so much more playing space behind us, so we actually have room. So it's more like a little mini film set than a theatre set, which we had in ensemble. And we've had a location change. So we were in Glebe and Annandale when we were doing the 2023 version, and now we're set in Paddington. We're in Queensland, baby. Yeah. So the architectural differences and even costuming differences was something I had to factor in as well. So yeah, very different to the ensemble version, even in colour palette. Like it's a lighter feel to what we had last time. So yeah.
Yeah. When you because this is Monica's apartment.
It is.
When you were conceiving it, I mean, it's not often. I mean, as a designer, you get the job of like you're kind of playing interior designer a bit. So.
Yeah.
And you're almost doing a bit of acting, actually, psychological, getting into how this space is made and the world that this character would inhabit. What sort of process did you go through to make those kind of aesthetic choices about Monica? What immediately struck you about her and how she might curate her space?
First time round, the character, and this was before these three had sort of taken apart the version from 1873, to soften and re-engage with what it might be to be a woman in 2023 going through, some depression, some mental health stuff, loss of career, and then meeting this man who is initially very frustrating and annoying and just there to fix her kitchen, but then becomes so much more. So it's about, thinking about how Georgie has interpreted the character. And would she read this book? Yes, I think she would. Would this rug be part of her decor? Yes. Rather than what would Veronique do? Because Veronique would, she would have gone to town in here. So it's, restraining your personal choices to what feels right for the character, the location, Queensland as well. So, yeah.
Out of interest, what would you have done? What would your house look like?
I think I would have gone a bit more velvet,
Velvet.
Yeah. Or maybe Chesterfield.
Yeah. Texture. Daryl, down the end.
Greetings.
Welcome to Queensland.
Thank you.
As you may have ascertained, music plays a really important role in this production and for these characters. Do you want to talk a bit about what is the character of music and how does that kind of propel these two? How does it propel the story, or perhaps these two together or apart? Because they're playing with two very different forms, I want to say, or maybe not.
Well,
genres.
I think what David set up initially in the sort of sense, the structure of the play, was the idea that the world of classical music and the world of country music were going to sort of have this arm wrestle throughout the piece, and they were both going to fight for their values and their benefits as opposed to the other. I mean, a lot of the debate between them is actually about musical values. This is what country music does. This is what classical music. So they're actually almost taking on the aesthetic of each of their preferred musics and trying to make the case for their particular preference and art form. And part of the challenge of the play is to be ping-ponging almost between these two different musical worlds and then see if we can find what that resolution is towards the end. And of course, being a play where David Williamson will have his next 6 great comic lines that we need to hear while they're demonstrating their preferred classical piece, part of my big job is doing the juggling act so that we get the big impression of the song, say, when it comes in, but then we just duck down to make sure that we can hear the next great bit of text or the next argument in the script. So often it's a very a bit of a juggle going through as far as where we keep the sound and the music focus travelling throughout the play to make sure we're all on board as we get through the play.
And Daryl, do you prefer classical or country music?
Why not both?
Both.
Why not both?
Both, you
Yes,
do.
totally.
You do.
Totally.
Yeah. Georgie and Glenn, are you both musical people? Like, do you find, is music an important part of your process or who you are as people?
Well, I was a ballet dancer for a long time, so it was a lot of classical music, which I adore, and my mum was into classical, but we also listened to a lot of musicals, and I'm a bit of a Pink Floyd, Jethro Tull, Joni Mitchell, so it's all over the place actually. But classical music I was raised with, and not so much country. Yeah.
What about you, Glenn?
Glenn.
No, I have no abilities. Triple threat, can't sing, can't dance, can't act.
Yes, can.
So for me, I grew up in the 80s, really. That was the music that resonated for me. And David Bowie, of course. So
David Bowie.
Where the other.
Bowie man.
But I don't. Classical music wasn't a thing. I think I liked Glenn Campbell as a kid because he was also called Glenn.
Yeah. Okay.
With one N, I'm two.
Yep.
So I was named after Glenn Ford.
Oh, Glenn Ford.
Segue. Ben, lighting.
Yes.
You are no stranger to Queensland Theatre audiences. In fact, you are as far away from a debut, I think, as possible. We know you have lit Round the Twist. You have lit so many amazing physical theatre shows of ours, naturalistic shows of ours. You've done dance and circus. Comedy. How do you light a comedy? Because there's actually some invisible rules to lighting comedy that no one actually ever talks about. But we're going to talk about them tonight. These are the hard questions. How do you light a comedy, Ben Hughes?
Well, when a director says to you, light it like a comedy, in a way it's code for bright, pretty much. The first thing it is everybody wants to be able to see everything. If you try and hide anything from the audience, it's actually not funny. You lose the comedy. Unless you're going into a very, very particular stylized thing or actually making a gag with the light. You actually want to see the actors be funny and let them do their thing. So half the battle is sort of getting that to a point where you can get this sort of really, really bright thing on stage, but make it so that it's still viewable for an audience, that you're not sitting in an audience going, oh, that's actually hurting me, or it's so, blowing my head off all the time, or it's not just the same thing for a long period. So trying to find ways to shift a room around without an audience really knowing, so that when your eyes are not just locking onto one thing, you've actually got a little bit of movement to actually help guide you through the play.
Which means that when you do hit a blackout, it can be quite disorientating, as Georgie perhaps discovered.
Oh my God. It's light and then blackout, and we have to move when it's black. And it's like, I just stand there and go, I'm sorry, I cannot see anything. And then I'm meant to be at a door and I'm facing the wall, and I went, I can't find the door. So anyway, that was a catastrophe. And that's why we have tech.
Correct. I'm coming out to the audience now. Does anyone have any burning questions for anyone on this panel about any part of how the play's been made? DW, coming round. Oh yes, one in the front row.
Yeah, look, I think a big voice.
Right at the very beginning, you said something that really got to me, which was when you're on stage and you're doing a live performance, you've got to keep it fresh every performance. Because I've actually been to QPAC and seen performers, and I'm going, these guys are at the end of their tether, they've finished it.
Yes.
I won't mention
No, but...
No names, please. Names.
Yeah, no names, no factual. Yeah.
I'm not going to mention names,
Yeah.
but you could really tell it, and it really took away from the performance.
I understand. I think, and that's part of, I don't know, I mean, and everyone has their own way of doing it, but and Glenn and I work very well together, and partly is because we tell the story every night, we listen to each other every night, and even though as the actor, you know exactly what's going to happen, and you have to, for safety reasons, and but it has to be fresh, and you have to listen, and every night, just a little thing will be a little bit different, and it might just shift something, but the jokes are still the jokes, and the drama's still the drama, but sometimes the journey's just a little bit different, and that's the way I like to work. I know I've worked with a lot of other actors who like to do a prescriptive thing, and that works for them. Also depends what you're doing, but I think with a lot of the work I do, it has to be fresh. It has to be an alive thing for the audience. We experience it together. Yeah, so my 500th performance is your first, so you know what I mean? Yeah.
Good answer. I'm going to, Glenn and George, you've both done quite a bit of screen, and we asked about theatre before, but I'm just going to intercede with a quick question. For those of us who don't know, what is the major difference between screen and stage, to your mind? And it might be different answers, but what's the real palpable difference? I know there's a live audience, but what do you miss when you're on a TV or film set that you get in abundance maybe when you're in a theatre space?
What's your experience been?
Mine will be very different to Georgie's because Georgie has done thousands of hours of television as well as this illustrious musical and theatre work, live work. I haven't done anywhere near as many hours on television as Georgie. But my experience of television is, in television, you turn up on set. You don't really get to rehearse. I don't know if that's the same with Home and Away. You've got to have done all the work at home and come in with some ideas so that when the camera's rolling, you've got something to do.
Yeah.
The privilege of what I love about working in a theatre is I get to spend 4 weeks initially with Georgie, and we are kind of peeling back the layers together, whereas in television it seems to be it's more I'll do my stuff, you do your stuff, and let's be respectful of each other's work and see if we can find some connections, but there's not a lot of, as from my experience, not a lot of time to
it's
really
a technical medium. It's a director's medium and it's a technical medium. But the interesting thing is with the camera, and we did that workshop, remember, with Di Drew at NIDA, and the beautiful thing about TV is that it still has to be a living thing because the camera is inside the audience. It's almost like they're inside and they're on the journey with you and they can see everything. So it's a more thoughtful performance. Literally, you can think it. You don't have to show it with your body. But it's just a different degree of truthfulness, really. But it is a director's medium, and often you start halfway through the scene. So you have to trust your first instinct, because your first instinct is what ends up on screen. It's scary. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Georgie and I have been working together for about 20 years now.
Yeah,
and
he was on All Saints. It was a very sad episode.
She nursed me on All Saints.
He was amazing.
And the great thing, when I watched Georgie, Georgie on camera obviously just eats her up. It just devours her. But what Georgie brings into when you're doing the play with her is she doesn't overdo anything. Everything is very contained and very natural and real. But Georgie her intelligence is so acute that there's a response to everything without demonstrating the response. I can almost see her skin respond. It's really fascinating to watch. And I've learned a lot over the years of working with Georgie to trust that on camera, that you don't have to demonstrate everything. It's just if the thought is alive and your body is alive to it, it becomes there's a story in that I find intriguing.
The thing I love about working with Glenn, this is a love festival now, is that Glenn is super duper intelligent, and his intelligence is alive in his eyes. So every time you look at him on stage, it's like, oh, what's going to happen? Oh, what are you going to do? And it's so exciting, and that's also a part of that freshness that we love and that you feel. Yeah.
There's a question up there. Yes, what was your question? The question is, for those in here, how much does the spectre of David Williamson or the renowned playwright sit over the work?
Well, shall I answer first?
Yeah,
and then we go. It's a good question, actually, because I've never really thought about that before. And now I will. I'll never be able to direct one again. I think you don't think about it. What you think about is the characters, the story, making the play work. The fact that it's a David Williamson play is fantastic, and it's an honour, and you feel all that thrill. I'm from the UK originally, and on Channel 4 they had an Australian film series, and part of that series was The Club and Don's Party and Gallipoli. And I remember watching The Club for the first time, thinking, who is this person? This was in the late 70s. It was shown. We used to quote from it. We were on tour, acting on tour, and we used to quote in probably the worst Australian accent you'd ever imagine from The Club. And then when I met David, it was like a thrill, because he was at the theatre, directed. Sandra Bates was our artistic director of the ensemble, was doing his work. So when I actually got to do one of his plays, that's when I felt I think what you're talking about is like this, oh my goodness, I'm directing a David Williamson play. But you have to soon sort of forget it, because then it becomes too reverent. You wouldn't make a decision, really. You sort of have to just, as I say, serve the script. And David is very generous. He's not at all like, if he thinks something doesn't, if you say, look, can we these lines don't quite work. And he said, no, fine. If he cut, that's great. And like I say, if it's a joke that he really loves, he'll get you to put it back in. But he's very generous at all of that process. And what he wants is it to work in front of an audience. That's what he wants utmost. So he's very good in that way. But in terms of it being a David Williamson play, that's sort of afterwards. That's sort of once it's opened and it's running, you go, oh, that was great working on that. You know, what's the next one? And he retired 4 years ago, and he's sent me 5 plays since his retirement. So he's still writing plays, and
he is the John Farnham of
yeah,
Australian Theatre.
Yeah.
And he's also a gentleman. He's so gentle.
He's a beautiful man. But Glenn's been in just about more David Williamson productions than any Australian actor. But you have been working with him, what, for 30 years since you came out of Nido?
That's right. My first job, I graduated from drama school in 1994, and my first job was in 95 in a David Williamson play called Dead White Males, which we did for the Sydney Theatre Company. Yeah, right. And we did for the Sydney Theatre Company, 1995. We brought it to the Gold Coast. We didn't bring it into Brisbane, but we played it. I can't remember the name of that theatre in the Gold Coast.
It's got a new name now. Hotter. It's called Hotter now.
Yeah, it wasn't called that then.
It wasn't always called Hotter.
It's
Home of the Arts.
Home of the Arts. So this is my 30th year working with Dave on David's plays. And look, that's a really good observation. It is really, I mean, for me, it's still a special thing. Even doing this one again, reviving this one, it still feels really exciting because the guy, he's a national treasure, living treasure. I think, you know, I would argue that audiences have been more exposed to Williamson than practically any playwright, Australian audiences, I mean. And he's in an echelon globally that very few writers have actually achieved. No, exactly. He's one of the most successful playwrights. I used to work at the Sydney Theatre Company in fundraising as well as acting, and I found this spreadsheet of the most successful box office, in terms of box office, the most successful plays at the Sydney Theatre Company. There was a list of 50, and there were 18 of them were David Williamson. It was absolutely incredible that of the top 50, almost a third of them were Williamson, and that is the guy. You know, it's and you can't unknow that.
No.
When you're in a Williamson, you can't not know that you're a part of a living tradition that is, you know, for wide Anglo culture is really impressive for me.
And we at the ensemble we say, and to David, he's our funding. You know, we put a David Williamson play on every year at the beginning of the year, and we just know it will sell out. So for us, 85% of box office is amazing. David's is 96, 98% every time we do a David Williamson. So we're very happy to have a David Williamson every year. He's a very lovely man.
Do you have a favourite?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
This one's pretty good.
I mean, this is good.
No, this truly. This it's the great. The last time we did this 2 years ago, we were at the ensemble doing it. And there's a moment where I have to run on stage because I'm playing music and Monica doesn't want my music played in her house when she's at home. So I dash out to turn the music off and I skidded across the stage and slammed into the back wall and broke my ankle in front of everybody during the show. And so I didn't get to do the second half of the season. And it was devastating. You know, we tried everything. Georgie and I sneakily got together when I was on crutches with a giant boot to try and restage the show, to beg the bosses to let us come back and keep doing it together. But luckily, there was an understudy ready to go. It was post kind of COVID, so there were still understudies. And Georgie was able to keep going, but it was devastating to miss out. Because this play means a lot, because it's with Georgie, and because we've invested so much of ourselves in it to create this version with David and Mark. It really has been quite a personal journey.
And so this is like a perfect. It's the revisit that we needed. You know, the play needed, we needed, just to really wrap it up and to,
Pleasure. I'm going to come around. Yes, here. Oh, twist, secret, twist, plot reveal, spoiler, alert, block your ears now if you don't want to know. What is the significance of the name Rhinestone Rex? Oh, who should answer this one, I wonder?
Well, Gary has an alter ego. I'll just leave it there. That's one of the layers that he, of pretenses that he's put on that he needs to, that he learns to check with Monica, and one of them is the idea that he's a kind of a roustabout,
Country
ladies,
music.
ladies man, country and western superstar.
Superstar. And
And maybe he's not.
he's fitting kid.
And Miss Monica comes into play as well. There's the character of Miss Monica evolves during the play. And as Rhinestone Rex
Yeah.
recedes, you see the emergence of...
It's part of the journey of the characters, and the name makes sense when you're leaving the auditorium. Yeah. So are you going to come and see it? We won't spoil
Well,
it
then
for
you'll
you.
know then.
It's very good. Yes, here. Hello.
One of the things that we're used to seeing here is a big cast and the interaction of the cast making the show what it is. This is really unusual because you've got two people who have been doing it so many times. What I'm wondering, is this the ultimate in method acting? You've been living the part for so long. How much has gone back into you guys?
Not much, thank God. No. You know what happens is when you've been doing it for so long, it's very easy to find them, and it's a thing of you have to find them because once the lights go up, it's her, and that they're very different to us as people. So it's very important that, and we've rounded them out now from revisiting this play so often. It's very easy to find them, and things like this beautiful set really help. All the little things that we've thought of and we've talked about, and Mark's great at asking questions of why are we doing that, why is she doing that, and it makes you find the reasons for it. So, I understand the idea of method acting, but no, thank God.
Although I am
Oh, he
53
loves it.
years old and desperately single and a moron.
No,
Georgie,
not a moron.
Georgie's happily married with a gorgeous child and a stable home life, and my life is a mess. But it's nice to be. So it's nice to be in Brisbane in the middle of winter. I love it.
We've got time for a couple more questions. I've got a burning question I really want to ask any of these fab creators. We've got a repeat customer down here, but before I do that, yes, just up in the... we've got two here, but one in the back row here. Yes. How does the approach of creating the characters change each time?
I think because we haven't actually done it in front of an audience in this space yet, we can't quite answer that question yet. But every time we do it, it changes because it's this thing. We listen to each other and we find different reasons for doing what we do next. And I don't know. It's hard to answer that.
I think also you change. So the audience changes. So every night is a different audience. So then the play changes depending on... And when you go and see plays, you don't realise that you're actually part of that relationship because you may laugh more, you may not, and that relationship then changes how both of the actors will, in this particular play, interact. So it's sort of very organic, isn't it?
And don't you find with a comedy, because the audience participates so much, it does shift things around, and you have to listen to the audience, you have to listen to what they're responding to, and go, okay, I get it. And that can, in one state, that can change every night depending on their mood, if they're tired, or Saturday night they can be tired, but a Wednesday matinee they go off. So I mean, it's really different, don't you reckon?
They really do.
And Georgie was saying the other day, and I think it's a really interesting observation that with a comedy, but certainly Williamson, and it goes back to this idea that audiences have been so well versed in the language of Williamson that regardless of what rehearsing a play. Is not dissimilar time to time because it's the two of us sitting, with the marks right there, and we're in a sort of sticky tape kind of gaffer taped outline of the stage space, and there's an old silly old couch and old furniture to mock everything in. So that's not dissimilar from time to time. But coming into this room, which I haven't ever worked in before, but as soon as I walked in today, I thought, I really like this theatre. This is a really nice, friendly room, but we haven't done the show in here yet. We don't know how long it's going to take. For the last theatres have different speeds. The ensemble is 100 seats fewer than this theatre.
And they're right here.
And they're right. Their feet are on you have to sometimes step over their feet
or push their feet out of the way.
And this is a much more sort of generous room. It has a very egalitarian suite to it. There's really, I mean, I know that you're on the extremes over there, but they're not bad seats there, presumably. It's not, you still can engage with us. So we have to learn the language of this room, and the speed of the show will change. And as Georgie was saying the other day, regardless of what you think will be the funny line, the moment where the audience are going to really hit their zenith in terms of their response, it's not up to us. It's kind of you dictate to us how to do the show. So that's what we have to find in this room, is what you tell us is the rhythm of the piece.
Yeah, I often find with David Williamson, and I can never pick what's funny. I don't know why. But you're doing the play and then you get it in front of the audience and you go, oh, okay, that's funny, okay. And I don't find it funny. I don't know why. If I was watching it, I'd find it funny. But when you're doing it, it's like, well, that's actually pretty serious, but they find it funny, okay.
Yeah.
And they do, and that's the,
But I'm sure that when Mark will be in the house,
Mark's a good audience, dare I say.
Saturday,
Yep.
But Mark will be here with us, and I'll be watching Georgie. We'll be doing the show, but we'll be very conscious of what sounds are coming from out there, and we will adjust. We will have.
Because you can't step on a laugh, and also you have to go. Oh, you might find this funny, and then sometimes you have to leave it. And then they find it funny. It's very,
And we've relocated the show, as Veronique was saying. So we've got to find out how that goes down. There was a really good joke about Queenslanders in the...
We can't do
when
it now.
When it was set in New South Wales, but we've made it Victorian. So you'll probably enjoy that. And there's a little appearance of a local establishment that you'll be...
Oh, yeah, there is. Yes, there is. I spoke to the owners. They were thrilled. Is there another question coming around? Yes, yes, hello.
I knew a couple of people, women, who were violinists. One was a cellist and one was a violinist, and I literally borrowed bits and pieces. It was a slab. On a film set, you have to buy everyone a drink.
See you in the bar.
Yeah. And what about you, Glenn?
Look, I was lucky in that, knowing David Williamson reasonably well, he let me know that Gary was in part based on his brother-in-law, who I got to meet. Yeah, he lives up in Noosa. He actually has a community radio show that Gary has a community radio show. Right. And I went in with him to sit with him while he did his show. And the situation is different. I mean, he's happily married and set up, but David Williamson said, oh yeah, you've got to watch him. He really has this alter ego. So I got to sit with the guy that it was more or less based on. Who then I was on Facebook about it a couple of months ago, and I looked at Chris. His name is Chris Lurfen, Kristen's brother, and I saw this picture on his Facebook page standing outside of what looked like my house, and I was like, that is really like in the 1970s, 40 years ago. And he was setting up, and then I looked at it and I thought, that is my house. He used to live in the house.
Wow, did he?
Yeah. What? So weird.
Oh, look at your house.
David Williamson often takes stories from his family, and sometimes on opening night he'll have his family with him, and you'll notice what an actor will say a line, and you'll notice the family will look at each other or nudge each other and go, "It's you."
I was playing one of those people at one point. I thought, this is really bad. But often people don't recognise themselves, so that was fine.
Yeah, he gets into trouble occasionally.
I did a production of Don's Party back in 2007. And we did it in Melbourne and brought it up to Sydney. And we met a lot of they were all based on people from David's life. And they all came to see it in Melbourne. So we got to meet Cooley, whose name was Crawley, I think.
Yeah, right.
And they said that David's nickname was Lofty.
Of course.
Because he was so tall.
So tall.
8'10".
So be careful what you say around David Williamson, folks. Yeah. Let's play. We've got time for one more question. Does anyone have a burning question they want to ask? Anyone? Oh, going. Oh, yes. Here, that went up. Yes.
I'm not sure if I need the microphone, but hopefully that's okay. I have a question around the script, and I
You don't even know. At the ensemble, when we do it at the ensemble, this is about the size of the stage, and that's the back wall of the theatre. So there's but you can't see, but you get an idea if you look down there. Behind there is more world that we're finding that we didn't have in Sydney. So, and there's a little window there that you can kind of get a sense that there is action happening inside the house.
Yeah.
So there's another aspect of the story that Veronique has given us behind that wall that you'll get. Yeah,
So,
sorry,
yeah,
beg your pardon.
but-
You were talking before, someone asked about how you as actors keep everything, the performance fresh. I was thinking about the script and keeping that fresh. And do you ever feel, tempted or have discussions around modifying even a little bit the wording? Because I'm thinking if there's a long tradition of a play being performed, culture changes, humour changes, comedy doesn't always land in a particular time.
Yep.
We did a lot of work, as I say, that on this particular script from when it was originally done. We gave a lot more agency to the female character. As I say, she was the butt of the jokes. There was some jokes that wouldn't land now. We've moved on, and we trimmed and we sent it to David. Said, "What if we don't say that? What if we say this?" And so there's a bit of manipulation going on there, because as you're right, it is organic, and it's interesting when you do a play from. I did recently last year The Odd Couple, a Neil Simon play, and it's more like an antique in a way because of the attitude to male and female characters and the way they talk about women. You have to be careful to you can trim a bit or you have to be very, I think, respectful of where we are now, but also at the same time you go, well, that's the attitude then. So it's quite nice looking back and going, I can't believe they said that then, or that was the attitude then. But with this play particularly, it's been an organic, ongoing, as you're saying, it changes. It changes with, and this time doing it is different from 3 years ago even. So.
And I think now it's a much more relatable love affair. It's a much more understandable love affair of why she would fall for him and why he likes her. It's because they both lose their defences. Yeah. Whereas before it wasn't an equal playing field, was it?
No, and with David's permission, we did go deeper into in a sort of naturalistic way into the circumstances of the two people.
Yeah.
When we first did it, I was about 39, I think, and Georgie was early 40s.
Yeah.
And it was still a story of two people that if they'd gotten together could have a family and could have, but moving, in now in my mid-50s and Georgie
60.
in her late 40s.
No more babies.
No. It's sort of a different story, and so Williamson gave us permission to mind that, and it became a story. There's lines that we actually added about running out of time, and how much longer are we going to dance around the edges of our lives? Let's just kind of be brave and take the masks off and see what happens if we look at each other naked in that metaphorical sense. And that's been a great joy. It's a very different play. If you'd seen a published version of it from that very first time around, it wouldn't
They're
bear
different
a great
people.
deal of.
Hey.
So great.
We'll be back here to answer your questions after you've seen it. It's time for our favourite part of the evening. It's time for the Lucky Door Prize. But as it makes its way down, I mentioned at the beginning of the of our time together this evening that Glenn, do you want to talk a bit about, you're going to be raising some funds across the season for ABF. Do you want to talk about that just quickly, Glenn, about your work?
I'm in Sydney, around the country there are various charities that are managed by industry members, arts industry workers, on behalf of the arts industry, not just performers, but designers and lighting designers and writers, choreographers, directors, front of house, kind of industry-wide funds that we look after people whose lives have fallen into a state of crisis. COVID, for instance, as you all remember, was a pretty devastating time for arts workers because not only is our livelihood in public spaces, it's also, we weren't very well looked after by the federal government. We were told that we weren't keepers.
We weren't essential workers.
We were seekers. And it was in New South Wales, we went from giving out $60,000 to $80,000 a year in financial support to help with mental health bills or keep cars on the road or dental work or whatever it was that people needed to keep their professional lives active. We went from giving out 60 to 80 grand a year to suddenly $1 million. So it kind of flipped the paradigm. And I'm very close with the Queensland branch or Queensland version of the ABF in Sydney. It's called the Actors and Entertainers Benevolent Fund. And with Dan's very kind nod of the head, he said, yes, if you want to raise some money for that charity, please do. So Georgie and I are really close to these funds.
Glenn does an amazing work with this.
So we're looking forward to raising some money to look after Queensland's arts workers when, as inevitably they do, times turn for the worst for some.
Brilliant work, Glenn. Really, really excited. I'm also excited about this hat, which is in theme. It's very Rhinestone Makes. We're going to draw one lucky winner.
And the winner will... I'll say the prize afterwards. Shall we do a drum roll, everyone? Drum roll. And the winner is...
How many did we pull out?
One.
Just one, I know.
Oh, that was mine.
Is it two?
It's two. This just in. There's
Okay,
two prizes.
this is Black E07.
Black E07. Who has... Hey! You're a winner. I'll tell you what in a second. Next winner, it's because it's the same prize.
Right,
I'll tell you the prize in a second.
So I'm going to tell you that it's a purple. So if you've got a purple one, just hands up if you've got purple. Yes, all right. So it's B. Is that everybody's got purple B? Yes, still going. The first number is a 3. Hands up if you've still got a 3. Oh, there's nobody. Oh, yes. What number have you got?
Don't be mean.
37? Oh, I'm sorry, 35. Oh, if you waited just another... Who's got 37?
Well, let me tell you what you've won. And this is exciting. You have won... Is this right? I mean, this is a lot of money. You have both won a Epic hair voucher. You're going to be styled by our hair partners, Epic Hair, to the value of $200.
Oh, yay!
So,
$200!
we'll see you at the show, the blowout, I say. Brilliant. Now, before we leave tonight, I just want to say thank you all for coming and for supporting Queensland Theatre this evening. I want to just remind you that, to acknowledge and thank our amazing sponsor, BDO. BDO help us to bring this amazing team from Sydney to Brisbane. Yay. The best version of the production is thanks to BDO. After Rhinestone Makes Miss Monica, we are heading into a love letter from fathers to sons with Dear Son, which started rehearsals today and is upstairs in rehearsal room 1. Then we're sliding straight into the tour de force that is Justine Clark in Julia.
Yes,
by Jono
you
Smith,
have to see that.
which is amazing.
Amazing.
Almost over a year ago, we were going, David Williamson emailed and said, I'd love to work with Queensland Theatre again. And we were like, yes, but what is the work? And this one bubbled to the surface. And I was like, oh, I don't know. Georgie and Glenn did it 2 years ago. Come on, let's ask. Pick up the phone, let's do it. And thankfully, the wonderful folk at Ensemble and Mark and Georgie and Glenn said yes. So I want to say on behalf of all of Queensland Theatre, thank you to the Ensemble and thank you to the incredible team here for bringing this wonderful play to us in
Thank you
Queensland.
so much.
Thank you for having us.
Dan.
Thank you.
I hope you all have a very great night, safe travels homes, and we'll see you in the theatre real soon. Thanks,
See you
everyone.
soon.